Thank you very much. Originally it was planned as a roundtable discussion, and so I prepared only a few slides. And now it's very difficult to speak after this nice and wonderful speech from Professor Pagliuca. I tried. At first, the DRG systems in Europe are well established, but you have to think about the purpose of these DRG systems. In many countries, it's used for more transparency, maybe for budget allocation, patients classification, and in some countries, especially in Germany, it's for the real hospital payment. So our problems in Europe for the reimbursement for a therapy, and we speak now of CAR T-cell therapy, is quite different. In Germany, we have to negotiate with each insurance for each patient sometimes. So it's very different, and it's not easy to make here a talk for a European audience. But we already know that the DRG systems are not made for innovations and high costs. And I showed this slide yesterday to see that within the DRG systems of this European country, they all have mechanism to provide the payment for special high cost special therapies and for innovations. Now, at this point today, I think in many countries, may not now in the UK, they started now their managed access program, but in the many countries it's a case-by-case decision which patient get now, today, or yesterday, or tomorrow the CAR T-cells. I'm very glad that afterwards we will have the patient's perspective of this, how it is to wait for this CAR T-cell therapy. And it's a lot of work nowadays. I know it from my hospital, I know it from Germany and maybe also in the other countries, that we have to deal with it, that the CAR T-cell therapy are there, but sometimes the financial issues are a big problem. I hope really that in the future there will some agreements and regulations that our patients will have the therapy, and the hospital will have a supplementary payments according to the costs, and within, in Germany, the DRG system. The reimbursement, they have special things. As Tony said, we had a lot of work for the initially implantation of the CAR T-cell therapy, and it's mostly human resources. He said he educated 300 people who will pay for it, and this is in the most countries. It's a big discussion who will pay for the implementation of a CAR T-cell therapy in a hospital. In UK, they said, okay, there are only 9 hospitals. In Germany, maybe it's you can do it if the pharmaceutical company gives you the alliance, and if you met their criteria, you can do it. But who will reimburse your costs? That's not clear at the moment. It's easier in the DRG system or in other payment for the actual hospital stay of a patient, because of course there are some complications, and they may similar to the bone marrow transplantation. They have cytopenia, but there are also new complications. You need some other treatment, and you need maybe more a neurologist than in the stem cell transplantation. So this should not be for the reimbursement a big problem. The only thing is that for the CAR T cells. And also for treating the complication, the most countries, they have a supplementary payment for tocilizumab and immunoglobulins. Here we see how the reimbursement can work for these cells. We heard now the nationwide advantage in the UK, that there are clear eligibility, that there are several hospitals you can do it, and they get the money from the government. If the money is enough, I don't know, but they get some money. And locally, here in Germany, we have, each hospital has to deal with the local health insurance. And that's some freedom, but also that is a lot of work and sometimes really a disadvantage. Let's go a little bit further. What is about cost effectiveness of this therapy? How much will the society, how much money will the society pay for it? And this is a serious thing to think about it. They are the first cost-effectiveness studies for the CAR T cells, and this is one of these studies. They have some problems because there are not a lot of data now at that moment, and the comparative is not blinatumomab for the RLL, something like this. So it's not the result that will last forever. But with their microsimulation model, they simulate the clinical course of CAR T cells therapy versus a standard of care. And they find that in the optimistic survival model, a quality adjusted life year will cost $55,000. And as a pessimistic survival model, it would be a little bit more than 100,000 per QALY. And this is the thing we have to talk about. Is the society willing to pay for it? And this is an unsolved problem. I cannot solve it now, but I hope really that we can do these studies in the future to find an answer on this big issue. Where are we now? We have to deal with it, that we have now the short-term problems. We have to deal with the health insurance or the NICE or something else. Yeah? But we need really clear eligibility criteria. England, they has now. We hope we will have it in Germany in future. And what is, not in the future, I hope in the next weeks. In the future, we will have more products. Will the market change at this? And what is about local production? There are open questions, and I cannot speak and cannot answer each question about the reimbursement in each country. In Germany, we are struggling really in the last weeks about the reimbursement in Germany in the different hospitals. And I hope you in the other countries of Europe has also some success to get the reimbursement of this therapy. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Connie, for a good international overview, and it will be great to hear the perspective of other health services and other clinicians in those health services. We wrote an article in the BMT last year or the year before, the narrow path between hope and bankruptcy. So that is the issue, and there's all these issues about the cost of a QALY. You know, NICE, our UK organisation, have looked at this, and the QALY was similar to what you reported. And what is the cost of a life or a quality life year? That's a moot point. So let's have some more discussions and debate, questions for Connie, perspectives from different parts of the world, Europe and beyond. Thank you.
I have a question, Connie. Very nice presentation. Thank you. So if we compare this costly approach, for instance, with stem cell transplantation, so in stem cell transplantation, we know there's a clear shift in Europe between using this approach in different countries. So we have a clear west to east, not because in east there are less patients, but the procedure is less done, and this is a clearly economy-based driven decision. So when I see your results, I'm a bit concerned this could happen as well in Europe with the CAR T cells. So what is your expectation and what is your solution?
What I said yesterday, the scientists and the physician here, they should provide the data which patient will benefit, really benefit from this therapy. So the healthcare workers, the people who work in the healthcare system can make a good decision about it. That this does not happen, what you are saying, it's here. And I can hope only that there are enough data and that we find some regulations to do it. It's a big danger, you are right, because it's a very, very costly therapy.
So I guess, Nicholas, you're saying there's that nice map that Jakob Pasveg produces every year in the activity services where some countries are black and some countries are green and some countries are light green, because that reflects the density of transplantation per, I think it's 100,000 of population or so. We need to do that for CAR T cells and these other therapies, because we'll
have to do it, yeah.
Highlight the perhaps unfair variability across the European countries. So, okay, Amjad.
Can I just ask, if the historical development of other drugs would have included phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 trials, and a very long process from finding the target and then the drug and going through the whole process, and maybe the company would have spent $1 to $2 billion dollars or euros before they would actually come up with a product. So in this particular case, this was obviously developed through academics, and then the companies actually bought the product. I know the process is difficult, but have we actually given in to be or are being held to ransom with regards to the price that the company has actually put on the product? And it's because we can't commercially produce it otherwise. We have to only resort to buying the product from the company. Is it too much a price? Why 475,000 or 430,000? Why not a lower price?
I mean, others like Tony might want to answer that, and Connie. I mean, there are kind of cost-sharing things you can do with any drug that's expensive. I mean, Tony, you...
Well, I suppose so. Nice have in highly specialised areas. The quality is it was released and no one really noted it, but the quality on in highly specialised is over 100,000. And so the problem we've got is, some of you have seen in the press, Novartis just recently got FDA approval for a drug in spinal muscular atrophy, gene therapy for spinal muscular atrophy. The cost is $4 million. Now, of course, the numbers of patients that you have for that treatment are quite small, and it clearly does work. But it went from a New England paper with a handful of patients. That's why it's subverting the whole process. We go phase 1, phase 1B, and it gets licensed. But they are now talking, certainly NICE and certainly the UK government, and I think others are all talking to companies about arrangements where there are milestone payments. So not all the money is paid up front, that you pay as like buying a car. You have you lease it, and then you have what's called a balloon payment at the end. Are there ways of changing the pricing structures? Because you're right, can we really afford it? Because this is the start of possibly many complicated and expensive products. For example, the haemophilia products that I showed on the New England paper from December, those are going to get licensed. How much are they going to charge for that? They look at the cost of treatment so far with haemophilia products, and they say, let's bundle all that together over a lifetime, and up comes a number. So we do have to have serious conversations with the industry. They will say that the numbers of patients treated are tiny compared to the hundreds of millions of patients treated with a blood pressure tablet or whatever. So I think there needs to be openness, candidness and transparency on what is a way forward for all of us.
I mean, the price, so I have two questions to you, Connie, and maybe to you, Tony, as well. So the price, even if there's more than 300,000 in general, as far as I understood, is a single shot. And then a substantial number of patients are cured. So it's a curative treatment. And if I compare the price policy in the last 5 years in hematology, where we have so many drugs in specific disease, so if you take, for instance, multiple myeloma, where you ended up with the same cost for a non-curative treatment approach in salvage therapy, for me the price seems for the first glance not too high. On the other hand, I'm wondering why we have such range. So we have this 400,000. On the other hand, if you do it on-site, there are people claiming this would cost only 50,000 for one approach. So what is really, what makes the difference between 50,000 and 400,000?
I'm not a CAR T-cell expert, I cannot say it.
Well, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. Is this boutique production, i.e. you're doing 30, 40 products? Just a simple thing, you know, we are a major GMP retroviral and lentiviral production center. We produce most of the GMP grade vector for all the trials in the UK, including all of Autolus's trials. And batch production on that is quite expensive. So there's that's one cost. Now scale-up is going to be required. But once you start looking at the difference between a commercial product, you go round these sites, there are hundreds upon hundreds of people working there. And they, I presume, someone's done their sums. I don't know what the real cost is. You know, I hear that cost saying we can do it for less than 100,000, but I don't know whether that's realistic.
We've got Amjan, who's from our neighbouring country, Ireland, so he may give some Irish perspective as well.
See, I work in Ireland, but I am from Pakistan. So, I mean, hemophilia has been actually touched upon, and the World Hemophilia Federation president has been an Irish for a very long period of time. If you take the example of the hemophilia, the genetically engineered factors are not available in a third world country. And the reason they are not available in a third world country is because the companies make enough money in the first world country and they don't bother to give it to a third world country. There is not, we have gone through this with the HIV drugs as well. So similarly, if you take the example of lenalidomide, and I won't quote the price here, which is similar to or closer to 10,000 euros or maybe slightly less, is produced for 300 euros in India. So the bottom line is that there has to be some line between what the company or what the industry asks and what we are willing to pay. While it is curative, as Nicholas said, I think in the grander scheme of things, the price can't be that expensive as to what that, and this is not only 30, 40 patients, this is going to skyrocket. So are you still going to willing to be paying? And this is, again, so we are talking about CAR T as a bridge to a transplant. So that has to be taken into account as well. I mean, this is a never-ending spending spree, I'm telling you.
It's probably fair to say, I mean, we've talked a lot about the UK, but which isn't a developing country, but it wasn't so long ago that a lot of the patients in the UK were crowdfunding to go to the US or wherever. And that's the other extreme. That's why you need public health and a fair system to make these changes. Nicholas?
I think it's now time to listen to the patient, because then it's a good time what the patient will say. So thanks, Connie, for your presentation.